Good afternoon and welcome to TBR's second Around the Data Center webinar. It's an opportunity for 4 of our more freewheeling analysts to get up and expound upon some of the topics that we feel are very current within our industry. Should be a lot of fun. And to kick this off, my name is Jeff Willicott. I am an engagement manager in the senior analyst in our consulting services division. I've been brought in for Stuart Williams, who could not attend, to moderate this event, which should be interesting in its outcome. The first thing I will do is turn it over so that the analysts can introduce themselves as to the ones that will be speaking today. There we go. All right, Matthew, take it away.
Okay, this is Matt Healy, and to anyone who was just listening to me on SAP radio that ended at noon and realized I was at the Extended Stay America's parking lot on 495, and I'm now in Hampton. If you're a member of law enforcement, I would ask that you not calculate the speed of that particular journey.
And this is Patrick Heffernan, and I got here early this morning so I wouldn't have to go through what Matt went through. Alan?
I'm Alan. I head up the cloud research at TBR, and like Patrick, got in early, ready to go for this.
Hi, I'm Jillian Morandi. I work with Alan in the cloud practice, and I'm excited to get going.
All right, so what is it that we're going to do? Each analyst will comment in a discussion about the 4 topics. The topics cover a wide range of areas related to the overall IT market, not just traditional enterprise data center. As you're going to see, based on outcomes and the way the lob is going, this is ever more important. So the first topic we have, will the millennials change IT, or is the IT industry making too much of their impact on the workforce? Topic 2, the return of the platform wars. Topic 3, what will be the Internet of Things? Topic 4, evolution of IT selling, moving from a blue-suited sales model to an add-to-cart sales model, which is one that I wanted to talk to, but Matt didn't let me in on it. So with that, we will go, there'll be winner's commentary. That's why we know Matt isn't going to win this one. My feelings are hurt. So with that, we'll let Matt kick it off by talking about millennials. Will they change IT, or is the IT industry making too much of their impact on the workforce?
Okay, Jeff, I want to start off by saying that I genuinely misbotched the scheduling, and I did want you to be a panelist for the blue-suited one, so my deepest public apologies for you on that particular topic.
Thank you for that groveling.
Yes, I grovel well. Okay, so the question is, when you keep going to these conferences and you talk about things and you hear about how the millennials are changing IT, the millennials are going to be altering the workforce, and there's a lot of skepticism amongst the older and more experienced workers. However, we still keep coming to what's the effect of the millennials going to be. And from my perspective, it's really going to be 2 main perspectives. The first of which is the millennials are going to bring a different perspective, and the reason they're going to bring a different perspective is they grew up with IT. They grew up with working with IT. They came of age through high school in a time where a lot of socializing happened on platforms like Facebook. Prior to that, MySpace. I know that didn't take off quite as well. You have Twitter, and you have all of the other IT-related tools. So while when people of Patrick's generation and mine, the IT was kind of a separate thing. It was the AV club and people who did that. Now it is so ingrained in the millennials' approach that they're going to think about problems from a fundamentally different perspective. Bring that in with the natural theory that new employees who are coming into the workforce are unencumbered by the past and, quote, the way we do things. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see the millennials really start to be able to exploit these tools, get far more powerful results, and really start moving the ball forward. And the people who are longer in the tooth, who are not as quick to embrace these tools, are going to quickly see their value to the organization start not declining, but they're going to start looking at what the millennials are doing and saying, wow, if I embrace these technologies and I work with these technologies, I will be just as productive, and then I can leverage my experience. So I think they are going to have a dramatic impact.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, Mr. Heffernan, go.
I think Matt's wrong. I think we're way overemphasizing why millennials matter at all. This conversation is, in some ways kind of silly. Look, at the end of the day, we're talking about work. We're talking about delivering something, whether it's value, whether it's a product, whether it's software, service, whatever it is that we're delivering to a client. They don't care how old you are. They don't care that you're a 25-year-old that just sent that email. They don't care whether you're 45 and you're the one that just shepherded that project. They don't care. The age doesn't matter. What does matter is how you manage people, and that has been true in the entire history of the workforce. People have had to manage other people, understanding how they think, how they work, what they want, how they respond to criticism, how they respond to being managed. There are very good managers, there are very poor managers. None of that has anything to do with how old anybody is. It has everything to do with how well you can manage. So I look at this whole issue and I think, yes, Matt's right about the adoption of technology and how well maybe millennials come into the workplace expecting this or that. But to me, at the end of the day, it's how well you manage, and clients just don't care what the delivery looks like in terms of who it's coming from. Managing people is hard, but like Jeff has said many times, we're all special individual snowflakes. So if you can manage every special individual snowflake, including guys that are Jeff's age and my age and Jill's age and even younger, then you'll survive. That's what matters.
You just need defib paddles for guys my age.
Yes.
All right, Jillian, go ahead.
I think that millennials will definitely change. I'm more on Matt's team here. Management will come into play, but there are so many tools to track productivity and assign tasks, and there's a lot of stuff around workflow. The management's going to have to be a lot more interpersonal skills, so I think it will take a different type of manager, so that will change. And the people coming into the workforce now, and even myself to some extent, grew up with cell phones and buying things online, online profiles, streaming media, content access, and things being constantly on. If I get something on Amazon, it gets shipped in one day for free. If I turn on my tablet, I expect everything to immediately be right there, connected with everything, discovering everything automatically. And I think that's how millennials are going to want to work. From my point of view, it has less to do with the outcome and more to do with the day-to-day of actually working. So yeah, I think vendors that address these things, and I'm not talking about social media and needing to like people's statuses at work, but more of the online interaction. I think they will change it in that way.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Alan Kranz, go.
So I think that millennials are going to have an impact, but I don't think they're going to have the impact that we all expect at this point. It's a lot like Jeff's generation and a little bit earlier with the baby boomers coming in with a very idyllic view of the world, a very open-minded, accepting type proposition, but that morphs as they become no longer teenagers, early 20s, get into their 30s. So all of this, free services. I mean, what a generation to be able to, as long as you have access to the internet and a mobile phone, everything is expected to be free. Their main source of interaction and social networking, it's all free to the user, and something that is very easy to consume. You don't have the AV club knitting together technology to do it. It's very consolidated, very shrink-wrapped, if you will, in terms of being easy to consume there, and that's all taken for granted. And I think the shift will come as they bring these views into spaces that are regulated, that have real business impact for security breaches and a lot of consideration for the existing tools and technology that these millennials are not bringing into the workplace today, but those views, I think, will shift as they adapt to the realities of how enterprise IT differs considerably from the free consumer services that they grew up using as part of their personalities.
But that shift is because they're going to be managed by people that have been around longer and have managed through crises and have managed through transformation. And those people that are doing that managing, I still expect all the same stuff that millennials do when it comes to when I order from Amazon, what I expect in terms of the workplace IT, what I expect from anybody in the IT industry. I have the same expectations, despite being 2 generations removed from millennials.
Yeah, but your expectations, and this is where I think you're wrong, and this is why I think you're wrong. I think that the millennials who are coming out are going to be in a better position to be able to more quickly fill your expectations and my expectations in terms of how fast things are, because they're native to the technology, they can see the tools, and they're not encumbered by the way we do things, and not we TBR, we any organization. The fact is that the tools are powerful, and to understand the full power of the tools, you oftentimes need someone who's going to think outside of the box because they're more comfortable with the tools and can use them far more intuitively and better than somebody like you and I can because they grew up with them. So they're going to fulfill our expectations faster than we can fill them ourselves.
So I think the gap is in a generation of people who are used to consuming IT versus actually building it. And that there's a difference between just being able to access it and actually delivering on all that simplicity and elegance and flexibility that we've come to expect.
Yeah.
Taking it down a slightly different path, Patrick, how do you think people who have been growing up where there's no winners and losers, everyone gets a green ribbon for participation, there are no different reading groups, you can't stay back because it'll hurt your feelings, I think that will impact how to manage these people a lot more than IT in some senses.
Right, and so you're right, and Matt's right, and the vendors, the IT vendors that are going to succeed are the ones that have managers, have leaders that are able to work with people that are native to technology, like you said, that are able to handle that speed. But that's an impact, but it can be way overblown. You can look at it and say, you know, that's the most important thing, and I don't think it is. At the end of the day, it's, all right, I will concede millennials matter a little bit, but they don't matter a whole lot. And every generation goes through this. We go through this every single generation. So
I just think that we do go through it every generation, but I think technology has gotten us faster, and we're happening faster right now. And Jeff wishes he had a mute button right now.
Right. Settle down, Rain Man. We got to get to the second topic here. So let's get going. All right, return of the platform wars. The first one up for the return of the platform wars will be Mr. Heffernan.
I am not normally this combative and grumpy. I'm Generation X, not a baby boomer, so I shouldn't be the old man yelling, "Get off my lawn," but I'm going to yell that right now. This, in many ways, like the millennials, I look at this issue and I think it doesn't matter that much. It's not these particular boxers in the ring who are going to make all the money. They'll get a payday. It's the bookies. It's the people providing services that are actually going to succeed as a result of these platform wars. And they're going to succeed because they're going to provide that, and I'm going to mess these words up horribly, omnipresence. It's on the slide. You can see it. They're going to be everywhere. I expect my services, I expect the platform that delivers them to be everywhere. And the next step is to be omniscient, to know what I want. And so the service firms, the services, the IT services vendors who take advantage of the platform wars to bring that next bit of omniscience to IT services, those are the ones that are going to succeed. And all these boxes in the ring will fade away like old boxers do. Yeah, so why not? I'll throw that out there, Jeff. They're all going to fade away.
All right. Jillian, it's up to you. What do you got?
So I have a different perspective again. I think the platform wars are going on right now, but they're almost going on a little secretively. Everyone is pretending to play nice with each other. You know, Amazon, you can put anyone's license on their cloud. Salesforce is working with Microsoft and Oracle. Google is working with HP and Dell. So everyone is pretending to work nicely together. But at the end of the day, these are pretty serious wars, and for a good reason. The vendor who becomes the underlying platform on which to run a business is going to win. So startups, it's a whole different area. If you run your business on Amazon or Google, you're most likely going to stay there. But even for larger companies who are getting on Salesforce or Microsoft, if they slowly move applications and business processes onto one platform, that makes that platform extremely sticky. And who is to say that they're going to renew an on-prem license when they could just use Salesforce connected to Workday for CRM, marketing, and ERP? And I think the other area that we're going to see a lot of movement is in the vertical-focused application development. So platforms, and I think the SIs will do well here that are industry-focused. I think attracting developers to develop industry-specific apps. We don't see a ton going on in the largest vendors. They're all talking about it, but nobody has a real presence yet. So I think the platform war is going on now, and they'll probably shake out in a couple different years with a few big winners, but many, many players.
Can I ask a quick question? On the vertical ones, who of the 5 boxers in the ring there are in the lead? Who does that better than anybody else?
Out of these people, honestly, I'd say Amazon and Google. I think they're a little far ahead. They are focusing on education, financial, and healthcare. But again, no one is really doing a ton right now, and that's why I think the SIs have a chance to come in and surpass these big guys who want to be more horizontal plays where they can be more vertical plays.
Right. Don't count out SAP with their industry focus on HANA.
Okay, we've got other questions that have come in. We'll finish the speakers here, and then we'll get to the questions. The next one up is Alan.
So I have to disagree with Patrick about, that these boxers are going to go away and that the platform wars are irrelevant. Because, just like on the traditional side, Microsoft's platform has tremendous financial viability, strength, scalability. Yes, the ecosystem that's built around their platform, I think it's a ratio of 6 to 1 for every dollar Microsoft earns. There's $6 in the ecosystem. Those $6 are much harder to track down, win, and execute upon. So Microsoft being able to provide that platform is a very powerful from a control perspective, from a scalability perspective, from an efficiency perspective. There will always be room to take it into different verticals, different regions, different customer segments. But really what you're seeing this battle for is that back end that takes the product out into a lot of different areas where just provides a tremendous amount of benefit there. So I think that's the importance of controlling the platform, and that I think the definition of the platform is becoming broader than ever as computing and intelligence goes into mobile, goes into all different types of devices, from public infrastructure to industry to personal use, that the definition of where a platform is and the attempt to control it is going to become just a massive opportunity that it will be consolidated, because right now you see everybody and their brother having some type of platform out there, but there's going to be very few that can execute across all the different spectrum of what's going to be capable once the things like the Internet of Things really gets going and built out.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Healy.
I can't believe it, but I'm about to agree with someone who can't pronounce the word omniscient. Now, of course, you read my Twitter feed, you'll realize that the only thing that's worse than the way he pronounced it the first time is the way I spelled it on Twitter. The reality is platform wars are fun. For an analyst, they're an awesome thing to watch because we can watch corporate giants jockeying for position. They are the ultimate heavyweight battles because so much is at stake, and they are so entertaining to watch. The thing is, they tend to last a lot longer, so we tend to, in IT, want to think that they're going to happen very quickly, but these are going to take a very, very long time. We've been predicting the death of the mainframe platform for a really long time, and guess what? Still here. So I think that they're going to take a while to play out, and I think you're going to see defined losers. The defined losers may not go away, but they may be relegated to very minority status. And I do agree with Patrick. I do believe that the ultimate winners and the ones that are guaranteed to win are the services providers. I was in a panel at one point a long time ago when the question was vSphere versus Zen in virtualization, and they said who was going to win, and this was when it was still up in the air. And in the panel I said, I know who will win, and about 200 people waited with bated breath, and I said, the services provider who will implement whatever you, the customer, think is the best platform. There's going to be 2 or 3 of these. The world for the role of the IBM Global Services, the Accentures, the Deloittes, all of the other consultancies, all of the other systems integrators, not going away. They're just going to keep prolonging these fights and make sure they go on forever, because boy, there's money to be made in figuring out which one is best.
All right, while we were doing this, we did have a question that came up of what's a platform here, where's Red Hat, Oracle, IBM? So who wants to try to take an answer on that one? Alan, speak up into the mic.
So the platforms that we're selecting here are really both the cloud platforms as well as the development platforms that we see defining the different offerings that will be provided going forward. So I think it's a fairly loose term in terms of what is a platform, and the vendors we selected are not represented in any particular order for any reason.
The vendors were selected not for any particular reason, and it is very loose, because if you want to look at SAP, HANA is a platform, but then you can also look at the VMware Hybrid Cloud Service, which is one platform. It depends upon where you define it, and one of the things that's so entertaining, at least for me, in watching these platform wars is there is no universal definition. So while SAP says HANA is the platform, Red Hat will say no, RHEL is the platform, and Oracle will say it's Fusion that's the platform. So where is it and what's going on? And this gets back to, once again, the services providers are going to help sort that out for the customers.
So I have a quick question then.
Patrick, go.
You mentioned, you threw out Internet of Things and you were talking about it. So how much does this platform war slow down adoption of Internet of Things? Or am I jumping ahead to what you're going to say on Internet of Things?
I don't think the platform wars slows down the Internet of Things. I think, if anything, the maturation of use cases for the Internet of Things, the different cloud services that are going to be delivered, and the ways that that's actually done will help define, which way the platform war goes. Because I think ultimately it's about use case and value, and the most efficient and effective way to deliver that. So it's really looking at the solution first, and then the platform will be the one that...
So it doesn't matter that there's this back and forth on the platform side, that will be resolved by...
I think that's driven, in fact, by the adoption of, Internet of Things, analytics, cloud solutions.
Oh, all right.
So what we're seeing is a byproduct of a whole supply chain of technology.
All right. I was looking at it a different way, so, okay.
All right, we also have another question in there about a platform to do what. I am going to sort of preempt that and say Alan spoke to it as it's a platform for specific outcomes. So some of these things are going to be optimized in different ways. Is that a fair summarization, Alan? Try to get this moving along, but make sure we answer the questions.
Yeah, it's a platform for cloud services, for cloud environments, for software delivery. As Matt and I said, it's fairly broad in terms of just the dynamics around, broad views into platforms.
Being an apps guy, for me, the definition of a platform doesn't go much below the applications layer. Of course, I come from the application software research area, so for me, why isn't Red Hat in there? I don't know. It's a little outside of my purview. When we get below HANA, or you get below the Fusion platforms for Oracle, or the Microsoft infrastructure, then what's running underneath it? Well, hardware and other things that I don't pay too much attention to. So that's one of the things I think that's so interesting about this is, depending upon where in the organization you sit, the platform to do what and who is included in it varies. Jill will have a different perspective. If we had Christian Perry, who's our data center guy, he would have a whole different perspective. And if we had Scott Kennedy for networking, he'd have a radically different perspective. That's what makes this fight so interesting for us to watch, and why I love it.
All right, let's get moving to topic 3. If we have time, we'll come back to some of these questions that are coming in fast and furious as we go. This is the one of the impact of the Internet of Things. The first person up on this one is Ms. Morandi. Go, Jillian.
The Internet of Things goes hand in hand with the platform wars, like Alan mentioned. So What the Internet of Things means to me is that we're collecting data on just about everything that you can imagine. So that drives platform wars because it drives developers to want to develop applications that have to do with data from different things. So right now, Salesforce is building out a developer ecosystem around wearables. Google is doing it around Google Glass. So getting all this data just creates so much opportunity for application developers, and then in turn will drive revenue for cloud providers, hardware providers, software providers. All of this data needs to go somewhere. It needs to be saved somewhere, and then you can get BI to do analytics on the data. So from my opinion, I don't think it'll change the day-to-day work so much, but it will create lots of opportunities to look at the world in a different way and to just use IT for that many more things. It'll drive portfolio changes, website changes, interactions. A few vendors I've spoken with, they use every single customer interaction to better their website on a weekly basis. So it'll drive faster change, but I think the bigger impact is around the developer communities and the underlying revenue that the hardware and software guys will make.
Okay. Next up for this topic is Mr. Kranz.
So for where the Internet of Things is at today, what we see is a couple use cases, a lot of marketing, but overall this universal, it's almost a fear among customers that they need to be doing something with every piece of data they can get their hands on, and therefore they should be cataloging it all, storing it all, keeping it all, and so you see this massive focus on really capturing every piece of data about the business, both internal and external, that they can get their hands on, and in reality, very little productive use is coming from most of that storage and data and investment today. So I think the thing that I think will really bring the Internet of Things to life are true business use cases where you can have best practices that are established for matching the data set, collecting only what you need, having the insight and the knowledge to do that and let go of the rest, and then measuring the results that actually come from the plays, the promotions, the offers that are generated as a result of that data, or on the cost side, the efficiencies that are generated and provide actual cost savings that you can link to the use of data, the analytics, and then the actual outcome. So I think there's a limited pool of those use cases that really make sense today, and that the folks that are on the bleeding edge of this are going to be the ones to document and go through the difficult process to establish what are the broader set of use cases that really make Internet of Things not really as broad as it is today, but much more impactful for the customers that are investing in it.
All right. Next up, we have Mr. Healy.
So I like Internet of Things. I like it because it's collecting much more data. It's collecting a lot more data a lot faster. And since one of my coverage areas is analytics, more data is better. But contrary to that, the fact that you're able to collect more data faster doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be able to make better decisions. You may be able to make more informed decisions, but the art of collecting all this data, figuring out what it is, what matters, what doesn't matter, and making better decisions is going to take a while. And it's going to take a while because when you start collecting all of this data, you have to realize that big data and analytics, I was asked at one point, is it art or is it science? And my answer was yes. The science of big data is what do you collect, how do you collect it, how do you store it, and how do you pull it all together, especially in unstructured data. The art is what's the context of that data. If I don't understand what's going on in the underlying business process, then I may end up chasing the wrong thing. I was listening to a customer at a recent IT event. They said that the reason they were doing better with big data was they had an IT guy and a data guy looking at it from just a statistics point of view, but then they also had heavy involvement from the business units and from the people who knew that particular market. It was a Canadian bank. And so the guy was able, the banker was able to say, yeah, don't worry about that town. They've always been that way. So I think that Internet of Things is going to enable a lot more things and it's going to enable a lot more analytics. But I caution everybody, be careful. More data, faster data doesn't equal better decisions. You really have to know what you're doing with all of this data or you won't get your results.
All right, Patrick, we'll have you go. Also, somebody asked prior for a definition of solution provider. Given that's your area of expertise, if you can give a definition of that after the Internet of Things, that would be useful.
Be happy to. Since putting a stake in the ground has not done well for me in the last 2 rounds, and since I'm not a data guy, I'm not really an IT guy at the end of the day, I'm just going to tell a story. So this is, imagine you leave your mechanic, your favorite mechanic, and as you're driving away, you just had an oil change, you get a text from Starbucks that, hey, Starbucks is right around the corner and you're a Starbucks member, come on by and get your latte or whatever. And so you do. You read the text and you say, oh, all right, great, I'll swing by. And you go through the drive-through and you get your latte and, and you're happy and everything's good and fine and great until the end of the day when your insurance company, your car insurance company, changes your profile because you were reading a text while you were driving. It's a bit of a no-no. And then your health insurance company changes your profile because not only did you order the extra large latte, but you went through the drive-thru. You didn't even bother getting out of the car and walking in. And then, on top of all that, your auto insurance goes back and looks and says, oh, look at that. This mechanic that he always goes to get his oil changed is rated really poorly across all different kinds of social media. So that car is probably not in as good a shape as he thinks it is. So what did the Internet of Things just do for you there? What did analytics just do for you there? Just drove up the cost of everything. Humans are, like I say on my slide, chaotic and messy. I don't think we really want all of the possibilities that are out there to actually happen. We don't want our health insurance to go up because we went through the drive-thru instead of getting out of the car and walking in. But that's exactly where Internet of Things is potentially headed.
Agreed. However, if you are the insurance company and the health insurance provider and all of the other people, your top-line revenue and profitability just went up. Therefore, it depends upon from whose perspective you're looking at it. Yeah, from a consumer perspective, my comment on the Internet of Things is I'm not necessarily sure I want my refrigerator tracking my usage statistics.
Right.
But if I was Aetna, a health insurance provider, I might want my clients' refrigerators tracking their usage statistics. So this is definitely a double-edged sword. I also don't think customers can get away from it because it's pervasive and it's everywhere, and so the genie's out of the bottle.
All right. Do you want to define solution provider before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, solution providers are everybody that provides IT consulting and systems integration. It's the whole range of, it's everybody from Dell through Deloitte through Xerox and Cisco. It's anybody that's using...
And the little MSPs.
Right, okay.
And the little MSPs. I like the channel. I like the little guys. Don't forget the little guys.
Right.
Business is important.
Yes. Yes, of course it is.
Thank you. Now get off my lawn. All right, so now we've got my favorite one here, blue-suited sales model to add to cart. Speaking of the transitions and the transformations everybody's going to have to go through as this industry accelerates. And the first person up to speak to that is Mr. Alan Kranz.
So with this transition, I think there's 2 things that are important. I'll start first with a story because I think it brought to life a lot of the impacts of this transition from a very personal, high-touch sales model to more of a add-to-cart that we've seen with particularly the cloud offerings. And the perception with that is that with cloud-delivered services, there's a pricing impact, and that impact is that the overall price is lower. It was an interview that brought to life a sales guy that had been on the other side of the fence, sold boxes for a major IT company for years, and then had made the transition over to a cloud provider. And so we asked him, what's the biggest difference in the way that you're interacting with your clients and the way that cloud is sold versus the traditional IT? In his comment, what always bothered him with the traditional IT was that he had to give his best deal to his worst customer. And then unless there was an issue, they were threatening to throw his company out, to really beating him down. He didn't have the authority to give a price discount for, the customers that he really thought that, had been loyal and deserving, and that with cloud, yeah, the price is lower, but the price is also transparent, and it's fair, so that if there's certain tiers of usage, those customers qualify for greater volume discounts. And so that transparency is part of this shift from a Blue Suit where you're not really sure what others are paying, where add to cart, it's laid out for everybody, it's transparent, you know what it is. So I think that model has a lot of impact there. But also that the need for Blue Suits doesn't go away, but that their use is going to be more sparing. There's still value in buying from a person, having a relationship, and establishing that over time. So Blue Suits aren't going away. They're going to have more free time to go above and beyond just the transactional pieces.
Okay, thank you for that long-winded response, Mr. Kranz. Next up for Blue Suit to add to cart is the verbose one, Mr. Healy.
I want to start right off the bat by saying that this entire topic is due 100% to Mr. Jeff Wallacott. It was his ideas sitting in a conference room a few months ago that has launched this research stream, and for that I am entirely in his debt. I have unabashedly stolen it from him, and now that I've announced to the world and tweeted out that I've stolen it from him, I'm going to continue to steal it from him. Where I think the move from the blue-suited salesperson to the add to cart comes really into play is in time to value. I don't know anyone out there who's willing to accept the 9 to 12 months of sales cycle deployment integration for an IT solution. They're going to need to get to value quickly. If I can cut out the RFP, RFQ stages, and I can start getting to value, I can do add-on purchases a lot faster, I'm going to be a lot happier. I do not necessarily believe that the Blue Suits go away, but I think that their jobs shift in terms of hunting new business, new logos, whereas you then start looking at add to cart for renewals and secondary and tertiary systems. Since I've been accused of being verbose, I'm going to end here and pass it back to Mr. Wallacott, for whom I am in debt for this topic.
Well, this is like putting the polished apple on the teacher's desk before grading time, and I'm not going to buy it. But thank you for the time. What I was going to insert in here, if you want to get an idea of this impact, this is from an interview I did with a managed service provider who said if they were doing a rip and replace of a Siebel CRM, that would be a 10-month deal for them and about $500,000. And if the people have decided they just want to move over to Salesforce, it's a 2 to 3 month deal and it's $75,000. So take the RFP effort and understand you've got to be 4 times as efficient to have the same sales expense to revenue. That's what everybody out there is trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out how to monetize what they do, and they're trying to figure out how to sell it and be able to make money so that the born on the cloud era as we see it doesn't look like the dot-com bubble of 99 and 2000. And with that interjection, I'll turn it over to Mr. Heffernan.
Good. Turn it over to somebody who was around during the dot-com bubble. And what to say about this? I'll let the truck go by first and then comment. So in my little space of the IT world, where I speak mostly with folks in management consulting and in services, where the emphasis in the last couple of years, and really in the last 6 months in particular, has been this notion of selling solutions, of not selling IT, but actually selling some kind of business solution, identifying that business problem, and selling it. So it's going after the chief marketing officer and working on his or her business problem. It's going after the CFO. It's going after others in the C-suite. And the challenge, I think, for IT vendors then is to be able to have their sales force shift from the language of IT to the language of business. And where I probably saw this most dramatically was at a conference recently where at the plenary level there was a lot of talk about business solutions, and there was a lot of talk about a business approach to IT and in addressing those concerns of others in the C-suite. That was at the plenary level. At the next level down in the workshops, it was right back into all the data talk, all the heavy technology emphasis, everything to do with IT, nothing to do with the business solution. And so what that said to me, and this was this was not a small player in the space, that said to me is that transition is going to be brutal until those blue suits are able to speak in the language of business, which I would argue they're probably really well suited to do once they're given that free rein to do it. Maybe alone in this room, I have a little bit of faith in the salespeople in different organizations. We'll see if it works out, but I do think the change is going to come when IT is able to talk to business in a way that it wants to, in a way that it says it's going to at a strategic level, but it hasn't yet done at the actual operational level.
All right. Moving along, Ms. Morandi, whoops.
I think from some of the cloud vendors like Amazon, ServiceNow, Google, what Patrick is saying is happening. So it started off as add to cart, the IT goes in, they get what they want, and that's that. But now that the enterprise is interested in Amazon and Google, and those vendors are for sure interested in selling into the enterprise, they are hiring, not blue suit like we've been talking about, but they are hiring inside salespeople and field salespeople to go and talk to the customer. And they're talking to IT and line of business and trying to blur the lines, because the solutions themselves blur the lines across so many different levels. And now that IT is getting adopted by line of business and they see the value, it's getting quite a lot of traction. I think from a financial point of view, the cloud vendors are spending what seems like a ton of money up front to get clients in the door. That applies more to the applications vendors and the infrastructure vendors. And then they're hoping for a pretty easy and cheap renewal and upsell. So they'll spend a lot of time with the customers up front, get them hooked, get the platform in there, get it sticky, and then the upsell and cross-sell and renewal will just be a no-brainer for the customer. I also think that you see vendors changing how they're doing sales and incentivizing their sales teams differently across the different stages of their maturity. So in the beginning, the hunters are incented a lot to get new deals. Then 5-7 years in, when the company is a little bit more mature, they'll re-incent those people to cross-sell and upsell for their existing accounts. So I think it's going to be a very strategic play, how you get the sales team to do what you want them to do, and I think in the end it's going to make or break some of these companies.
Are they getting talent from other IT vendors, or is it new sales talent that comes in?
So it depends. For some of the larger firms that are getting cloud, they'll poach from Amazon.
Yeah.
But companies like Google, they look less at an IT background and more of the individual person.
Yeah.
So it is different, but there seems to be a lot of poaching between Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, Amazon, IBM.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, that kind of poaching goes on on the services side. You know, within consulting at Deloitte and PwC and EY, they all bounce around just the same. So. On the sales, on the business development side. So.
Probably less so in Silicon Valley, at least when Steve Jobs had his way and had that whole no poaching thing that Apple was not that I'm saying that he did it or he didn't do it, but it has been in the press, the no poaching our engineers and developers.
All right, we are near the end. There have been some questions that have come in. So while I run the analytics engine to determine the winner of this thing, I will let the various panelists take a look at what has come in. The first one we had was jumping back to the Internet of Things. Isn't the key value add knowing what to capture, analyze, and is that really any different than traditional business services going to those who spot a need and satisfy it? Who wants to pick that one? Patrick?
No, because I'm still reading it.
Okay, I'll take the first cut at it because I can react to anything.
Badly, I might add. Yes,
yes, thank you. I'm not sure it's figuring out what to capture, because I am a big believer, or a bigger believer than most, in given the price performance curve on storage, that if you have a robust framework in mind and a robust hierarchy in terms of what you're capturing and how you're collecting it, you should capture almost everything. The better trick is, what are you going to analyze and how are you going to analyze it? Knowing how to do that before you go into the analysis of it is going to be very difficult, if not impossible. I think that the organizations that I've seen have been most successful in terms of leveraging IoT and analytics are the ones who are able to try a lot of different things, leveraging the advanced and stronger processing power and the cheaper memory and cheaper storage, so that they can try anything and then slowly but surely figure out what's valuable. You're looking for a needle in the haystack. If I knew where it was and I knew what to capture, I wouldn't have to look for it. But it is a needle in the haystack.
So now that I've had time to think about it, and my colleague Jillian has prompted my memory on some stuff, I'll tell another story. I think it speaks to this. I heard recently, I don't remember how recently it was, or a little bit ago, from a huge logistics transportation company that they were having a hard time recruiting truck drivers in Africa. And what that has to do with analytics and the Internet of Things is actually kind of curious. So over the last decade or so, there have been fewer armed conflicts in Africa, which means that there have been fewer African governments who are conscripting young males, which means there are fewer young males going into the army and getting that basic training of how to drive a truck. So this large logistics, international logistics company that had for years relied on being able to recruit young males with basic truck driving skills now has to invest in training, has to invest in finding the right people and then training them and bringing them up to speed on what had been fundamentally a very basic and well-known and well-adopted skill. So what does that have to do with analytics? Well, 10 years ago, nobody was sitting around and looking at the rate of armed conflict in Africa and understanding that if that diminishes, then your investment in recruiting and training truck drivers is going to go up, so your cost of business is going to go up. That's the kind of insight that will come from Internet of Things, that will come from predictive analytics, that will come from that omniscience. Did I get it right this time?
You were closer.
Closer, okay. That we think we're going to see with the IT vendors that are more successful.
But I would argue that finding that correlation is the needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
So if you capture a lot of things, you're going to have to try a lot of things. And one of the difficult points in analytics is that management and your senior people who are going to look at various things are going to lock into something, and they're going to say, this is the correlation. It's always been, no, you've got to be willing to experiment and try everything.
All right, what we're going to do here, there's a question that's come up. I will endeavor to answer or address that question while the winner, who I have decided is Patrick Heffernan, can gather his thoughts to tie this up as we go. But the question we have, it was regarding the shifts in selling. And the way it came in is if you're selling concrete for the foundation of a new hotel, it's hard to talk about a better guest room experience. And what I'll say is you're absolutely right, but that's exactly what is going to have to happen. There is a bifurcation in the way these things are being evaluated. The elastic infrastructure has made the data center sell less pertinent. But the problem is that's where the sales folks know where to go. That's where they're migrating. So this bifurcation means that your marketing has to flank your own sales force and steer them over. You do have to talk about the hotel guest room experience to the end customer, the line of business buyer. And that goes to I was in the same session as Patrick was, even though I made him the winner, I disagree with his viewpoint here, is that the first day of this session was all about how they're going to market it, message it to the end user, the line of business buyer, the CXO. The second day was the hand-holding and reassurance to the IT data center, if you think of the pendulum back and forth, between IT control that's gone on. I am a young baby boomer, but I was in this industry prior to the start of the PC. The PC sprang up because you went in for your data center request to the IT guy, and he told you he was like a Russian businessman. He told you could get it done, a year from next Tuesday. So they wrested control and they took it away, and then it came back. Well, the control's going out again as the outcomes are important. So you got to market message the hotel room. Then you got to go back to that internal IT buyer that you're now going to be competing against, and they're fearful for their own job protection, and you need to reassure them that the concrete will hold, the thing isn't going to collapse, the rebar is solid. But the guy who wants to know if the bed's going to rotate or if the bed does this or the TV screen does that really doesn't care about the rebar and the concrete. So you're right. You have to do both, and that's the shift, and that's the challenge. And that's why the born on the clouds right now aren't making any money whatsoever,
because they've got to spend a lot on the proof of concept. And with that, hopefully I've given Patrick enough air cover to give his winner's dance.
So, since it's the World Cup, I want to talk about soccer. But I'm not going to talk about the World Cup. I'm actually going to talk, so this is my platform, I can say anything I want, right? Okay.
Within reason.
Within reason. All right, so obviously I follow a lot of sports. I love soccer, love baseball, love football, love all those sports, hockey especially. But one thing that drives me crazy is at the end of the season when you have teams that stink and they aren't playing for anything and it's impossible to watch the games. And that is true in every single sport in the U.S. And what's aggravating about it is you still have to pay a lot of money to go see them if you want to see them in person, and sometimes it's the only thing on. So you're watching the Blue Jays and the Orioles play a meaningless late season game. Soccer in England in particular, and I'm sure it's true in other places, but I don't know enough to know if it's true, has relegation, and I would love to see relegation brought to the U.S. major sports. Let's see some of these franchises that perennially stink actually get bounced out of the major leagues. Now, last year the Red Sox won the World Series. Let's have a round of applause for Red Sox winning the World Series. This year they're in close to last place, and so they could face relegation. But that would actually mean that you'd have end of the season games that mean something. The NBA would be fantastic. Instead of teams tanking so they can get the best lottery pick, it would be good enough not to get sent to the D League, and then you get to see teams that would come up. So maybe next year Portland, Maine would have a NBA team because they would win the D League, and you'd have what's that called? Not graduation, but promotion. You'd have teams promoted, you'd have teams relegated. So that's my 2 cents on soccer and American sports, and thank you for letting me win.
I don't know too much about soccer. It appears there's way too much fighting in soccer.
A little bit of that, yes.
All right, are there any other questions? With that, we will thank you for attending the second in the Data Center series. We'll let you know when we're scheduling the third. And thank you for participating.